when they print currency, it tilts this up and it makes it seem like things are going up and then taking a rest and going up and taking a rest and going up. Nothing's really going up. It's not, if you sell your home today, you're not going to buy a whole lot, it won't be able to buy more barrels of oil than it did back in the 1920s. It's a fairly stable thing because the price of the home was lower, but so was the price of oil.
Yeah.
By seeing these cycles, you can measure what is fundamentally undervalued and what is fundamentally overvalued when you measure everything against everything else. And you can see where things have to head. You can't have something that's, if you take currency out of the equation, if you've got two things that are going up, they're probably printing currency at about this rate. If you measure stuff against stuff, what you find out is one thing is actually going up and one thing is going down, because if you own this one and you sell it, you can buy more of these. If you own this one and you sell it, you can't buy as much of these, you know, over that period of time. So when you measure things this way, you understand that this cannot continue forever. You can't have this one go down to where it takes an infinite number of these to try and buy this one, or where this one, like real estate, goes up forever until one home can buy all the oil in the universe. You know, that can't continue. There comes a time when this is too overvalued and this is too undervalued, and they start to come back. When that shift and this is a very measurable thing. I've got charts on it in my book, The Guide to Investing in Gold and Silver. If you look at that, you'll see, going all the way back to 1920, real estate and stocks valued in gold. And so you can see this cycle very clearly, and it's measurable. And we've really just started gold's revaluation, where it's gaining in purchasing power. And then silver should leverage you to gold. It should outperform gold.
Also, Mike, you have other products that you're looking into developing or have developed, like DVDs, you do seminars, you're traveling around the world now, speaking in front of big audiences. Tell us about what's happening in the next 6 months for you and your company.
Well, we're coming out with some DVDs, and they're subtitled in multiple languages. So we've got DVDs coming out. We're trying to do a television special in the United States, and hopefully that will get aired in other countries as well. I just finished something, we just had a seminar in Singapore called the Silver Summit in Singapore. Now, if you look at the difference between the last bull market of the 70s, when gold went up 24 times its original price, and silver went up 36 times its original price. That bull market was only North America and Western Europe going after precious metals, trying to buy gold and silver. The rest of the world was pretty much excluded. The USSR, state-run economy, no exchanges there to affect the price, even if you could buy gold or silver. If you had any excess currency, which most people didn't, and you found some that you could buy, that was off the black market. So it didn't affect the worldwide spot price. In China, basically everybody was a subsistence farmer back then. So they couldn't buy, that's 50% of the world's population. India was very poor back in the 70s, so was Mexico and South America. Today there's billionaires in all of these countries, and it's legal to buy gold and silver in all of these countries. And now you've got things like the Shanghai Stock Exchange. And investing has now become like a sport in China. So you've got 10 times the number of people, each with 10 times the amount of currency, that can come chasing the same tiny little pile of gold that there was back in 1980, and a pile of silver that's about 1/5 the size of what it was in 1980. So I'm expecting a spectacular bull market here. The thing that I suggest is for your viewers to get as educated on what is as they can on what is happening with the world economies, what's happening with their own economy, and the fundamentals of precious metals, because they will. I believe that they're destined. The precious metals are destined to be the next great bubble. Whenever governments create a bunch of currency, it causes a bubble somewhere. In the United States, Greenspan created a bunch of currency because he was worried about something called the Y2K bug. The year 2000, all of the computers were supposed to go haywire, and he was afraid of that, so he created a whole bunch of cash, and it created a bubble in the stock markets that then popped. And once it popped, and then we had 9/11 in the United States right after, he lowered interest rates, and he kept them way too low, way too long, to try and get the stock markets to go back up. But the unintended consequences were that there was a real estate bubble that he created. They can create currency, but they can't necessarily direct where it's going to end up. And so there's always unintended consequences when somebody tries to manipulate the economy. And so they're doing all of these bailouts and stuff now. We just had 2 stock market bubbles in 1999, 2000, and then in 2008 the stock market bubble popped again and it crashed, and we're currently in a bubble right now. We had a real estate bubble in the United States. I don't think you've had one in Sweden, but I'm not sure. But the economies that haven't had the bubbles will do much better than the economies that have. The economies where the bubbles are popping and things are collapsing, those economies will have a tough time. So people have been burned twice on stocks in the last decade and real estate once, but they haven't been burned on precious metals for more than 30 years. And so they don't have a memory of that. When the public wakes up and they all start rushing into precious metals, it will go into a bubble and it will be overvalued. And that's the time to sell and get out of it, and I believe that we can measure it, and that's the things that I do at goldsilver.com and wealthcycles.com, as we provide all of this information.
On your website, as you said, you put out a lot of videos, interview with people that understands the history of money and where we are. A lot of people are saying gold should already be up at $7,000 per ounce.
Yeah.
But why isn't it?
Well, one of the main reasons that gold isn't far higher than it is today is simply because it is being manipulated. And there are groups that are trying to end the manipulation, and I think they've got very good information, and I like these people. However, I like the manipulation, because if governments and central banks are trying to hold the price down, what happens is the free market always ends up overwhelming these manipulations. But as they hold it down, it's not as profitable for mines, so less of it comes to market. And eventually the demand overwhelms this manipulation, and when they lose control over it, the price goes much higher than it would have had they left it alone. If it was $7,000 an ounce right now, don't you think there'd be a whole bunch of people trying to find gold mines and being in that business and producing gold and silver? If silver was $50 an ounce, there'd be a whole bunch of silver production. Right now, silver is below mining costs, and I know that because there's only one company I know of that actually turns a profit mining silver.